The oldest and strongest human emotion is fear. And the oldest and strongest type of fear is trepidation of the unknown. When we were children, our parents told us that monsters didn't exist. But we were sure that something was lurking under the bed or in the closet. Fear sees even if our eyes are closed. Welcome to the realm of the arcane. My name is Lon Strickler. Join me as I examine unexplained creatures, strange manifestations, and remarkable realities. Imagine this next hour as a voyage of discovery to strange lands, seeking not for new territory, but for new knowledge of the supernatural. Come on board as we begin this adventure together. Hey folks, good evening and welcome to another episode of Arcane Radio, where we explore the unexplained live on Beyond Explanation. I'm your host, Lon Strickler, coming to you within a cannon shot of the hallowed fields of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining me. Now, first of all, Arcane Radio and Beyond Explanation channel is made possible by you liking, subscribing, and sharing our programming. Super chat donations are essential for us to continue offering you our unique content, and your consideration is very much needed and appreciated. So tonight, something a little bit different. These are the kind of shows I guess we all live for, where we actually have gotten involved with something and we're surprised by something that we're investigating. So tonight I've got Tobias Wayland and I've got Manuel Navarrette with us. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves. So Manuel, you want to tell the folks who you are and how you got involved in all this?
Yep, my name is Manuel Navarrette. I am the creator of UFO Clearinghouse at UFOclearinghouse.com. We are a research database kind of clearinghouse for UFO sightings, alien abduction reports, cryptid sightings. I've been doing this since about 2012 or so, if not a little bit more. I'm also a member of the Phantom and Rock Monsters Fortean Research team, and I've been with the team for a little over, I think, 3 years now, 2 or 3 years. And I'm also an active investigator for the Chicago Phantom, Chicago Wing humanoid sightings. I do live in Chicago, so pretty much hometown boy right here. So I can be on the ground, pretty quick when it comes to my sightings. I've been out there at the airport quite a lot of times. That's about it, really. I've been in this for a while. UFOs, cryptids, paranormal has fascinated me since I was basically a child, and it kind of grew up into something that I never really lost interest in. That's about it, yeah.
Okay, well, Tobias, how about telling everybody about yourself as well?
Sure. So my name is Tobias Wayland, and I'm the head writer and editor for the Singular Fortean Society. And so a little bit about the Singular Fortean Society is that is an investigatory and journalistic organization that my wife Emily and I started back in 2016. And so what we like to do is basically what's in the name. We are a Fortean Society, and that is to say that we align in certain ways with the work of Charles Fort, who's an early 20th century collector of weird news stories. And so he read about these news stories, and he would speculate about them, often tongue-in-cheek, and he would notice commonalities and sort of point those out. And it's that kind of holistic approach to these subjects that we like to take as well. So we don't really concentrate on any one aspect of paranormal phenomena in particular. We really do it all. And that's basically our philosophy, if you will, as in an organization. And so it was only natural when we started seeing winged humanoid reports, coming in from just a couple hours south of us, and then really spreading into our area as well, that we were curious, and we picked up the story back in 2017. It wasn't too long after that, of course, we were introduced to Manuel and Lon, and we've been collaborating on this investigation ever since.
Yeah. So excellent. So I tell you, yeah, we have been together since this all began back in 2017, and in fact, Manuel and I actually have been together since the 2011 sightings. So we've kind of, this kind of old hat for us. But let me go ahead and start getting into the nitty gritty of this whole thing. And I'm not going to bore everybody with all the details, but quite frankly, back in 2017 when all this started, and that what you people may or may not know, Tobias and Manuel are probably the two original, in memory, the three original individuals who've been involved with this investigation. We've had others come and go, and Rosemary Ellen Gotti was part of this as well, but God rest her soul, she's no longer with us. But Tobias and Rosemary are actually following up on a lot of these sightings that I was getting, and we were doing vice versa. So we had a lot of different things going on. So we were getting direct information from witnesses. So we've been looking into this ever since all of that started. It's kind of come and gone, waned, and got a little exciting here and there. But I think since the July 22nd sighting of this year, things have really kind of progressed and kind of changed a bit. That sighting overall, and we're going to talk about that. That sighting overall was pretty unique because I don't know how many witnesses we have now. It's got to be about a dozen, I would say. I mean, it seems like there's more coming too. And this sighting had a lot of the TSA security show up when this being was showing itself right there off that access road by the tarmac, by the fence by the tarmac. And it's in an area of the airport, the cargo area there in the western part of the airport, where a lot of the sightings have come. And I believe, if I'm correct, that we've had at least 6 sightings within 100 yards of that cemetery. And for people who don't know, there is a cemetery at O'Hare, the Rest Haven Cemetery. So of course this has intrigued me and now all of us from the beginning, like, what the hell is the cemetery doing out there? And is there any connection? Because we had a UFO sighting on that thing, above that thing, and all these subsequent sightings around it. So, but anyway, just a few weeks before that sighting, maybe it was the same week. It was pretty close. I got a text from Jennifer Elsner, and Jennifer has been involved with the paranormal and has done production and such for TV shows, and she watched an interview I had done with the Zen podcast. Now that she had known Zen, this guy Zen, in school, I think, at some point. Well, anyway, she was intrigued with the interview because of what I had been talking about with David Deckhart, because she was experiencing the same things. So she got the book, My Alien Disclosure, Experiences, Exposed Reality, read the book, read everything in there, plus what, as far as the chapter on David, and she felt compelled to contact me. In the meantime, she has been in communication with these beings that are calling themselves the unseen ones. They don't like being called extraterrestrials. They don't like being called aliens. They're an ultra-terrestrial race of beings, or species of beings. But after some consultation and then her talking to me, and her and I working together a lot. I mean, we've been on the horn. I mean, she lives in Wisconsin now. But we've been living on the Horn. We've been on the Horn like every day for hours and hours and hours until I started picking up on some of the communication as well. So that kind of led up into we are right now, and it's been a whirlwind. I mean, especially the past 2 or 3 weeks, and where we have learned that, in particular, just like there was a photograph that David had taken several years ago, and I've always been intrigued by that photograph because it reminded me, or I sensed that some kind of connection with these winged beings was there. And when we presented it to one of these ultra-terrestrials, they basically acknowledged that that was the one photograph that we had of these beings. So that was kind of interesting. So we started digging a little bit further. So as time is going on, we started a splinter group off the Phantoms and Monsters Fortean Research thread of individuals who these ultra-terrestrials, these unseen ones, have designated that they are interested in contacting as well. And they designated them by name. They told Jen and I, who they wanted to be on that team. And fortunately, we have Wayland, Tobias Wayland and his wife. We've got Manuel. We've got Vincent, and Caden Mask, is one of the other group members, is in this as well. So hopefully everybody on this team is going to start getting some communication. Now, that's why I've got Tobias and Manuel here, because Manuel experienced something about a week ago out at the airport that he's going to discuss. And this is the first time he's discussed it with anybody outside the team. So, and I think Tobias may have had an encounter as well a few days ago. So, we'll let you present what you think's going on there, Tobias. So, but Manuel, why don't you tell us what happened to you?
Well, I had gone out to the Rest Haven Cemetery. I was had planned on meeting up with I believe it was Tobias and Aubrey, who's another investigator. And we went out there. We were looking at the spots where a lot of these sightings had happened, and we had just received that report from the gentleman who worked at the FedEx facility, who says he saw multiple entities. So I had to go out there and take some pictures. We were out there for a while, and then I decided to, we went our separate ways, and something just told me to go back to the cemetery. So I did, and that's when I was communicating with you, over Messenger. And so I went in, the cemetery itself is maybe 50 yards long by about 20 yards wide. It's a very small little cemetery. It sits directly across the street from a huge FedEx terminal. And to the right of it, just on the other side of the fence, is the active runways for O'Hare. So the thing is this entire area is surrounded by thick groves of trees, except for the right at the entrance, and a couple of little spots where there's a sign. So the road itself is a dead end, so you can park there and you can go into the cemetery. And for the most part, it's always accessible. So we had gone out there and we were sitting, and I was talking to the team as I was sitting there, and they're telling me, kind of giving me, a walkthrough. Sit down. There was benches there, so I sat down, and clear your mind. Try to listen, to what's out there. Try to, open your mind. Try to, raise your awareness. So I'm out there doing this, and I'm communicating with Lon and Jennifer and everybody on the team at the same time, and they're telling me, put the camera down. I had a digital camera with me plus my phone, and they told me put the camera down. So I turned it off, put it to the side, and they start telling me, there's something there. Um, Try to, it wants to communicate with you. So I'm following your instructions. Um, the first thing I told you about the rabbits, that there was a couple of rabbits out there, and so I was kind of just naturally watching the rabbits. And I mean, if anybody knows, I hunt, so my first instinct is to watch, you know, what would be considered like a prey animal or something, because if it scatters, it's just an instinct. Um, and they were telling me, it's in front of the rabbits. The rabbits just passed in front of it. Um, Hold your, arm out. So I did, and you started immediately feeling, you know, like tingles. I don't know how to explain it, like little pinpricks on the tips of my fingers, leading all the way up to my palm. And they were telling me, it's behind you, and look to the right, and you look to the right and saw some shadows, and then you start hearing whispering. Um, I heard it very distinctly, very clear as day, call my name. Um, and then it's just whispering from behind, and you're feeling this connection. It's just so strange. I mean, it's like if you could take energy and kind of make it tangible, um, and feel it. It's what it would feel like. Um, I was at the same time, I'm trying to glance over at the phone because I guess I'm getting messages from the team, and they're telling me it's behind me. You're hearing what could only be described with the sound of wings. You're seeing shadows. I will tell you right now, I did not see the actual. You saw the shadows. You felt the energy. I did not. I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh, I saw it. It was there." It's not. Were you were feeling it. You could feel it there, and I was told that about the rock. It. I looked over and there was a rock right there, and I was told to pick that rock up, and that it had put the rock there for me, and the rock was, you know, it was charged. You could kind of feel the energy from it. So I picked it up, and the entire encounter itself lasted, I want to say, what, 15 minutes or so, when we were,
Yeah.
from beginning to end. So the entity had a name. I'm not sure if I want to really say
Yeah, go ahead.
it. The name was Uru. U-R-U. Um, from what I was, the energy it was given off, it was, and when I was being told from the team as I was being guided, it was a juvenile. It wasn't a full grown adult. So it did give off juvenile energy, kind of skittish, kind of how a fawn would kind of approach somebody. It's still skittish. It doesn't understand. It's exploring, but it was an energy that was really, really. You could tell first off it was very ancient kind of energy, and it was also very powerful, even if it was a juvenile. Um, it was almost overwhelming. Um, it kind of overpowers a lot of your senses. Um, it finally decided that it's time. The encounter ended. Um, I was talking to you guys as I was getting in the car and leaving, because I was instructed to leave the area. Um, but it was one of those things where it took about 3 days, um, for me to actually get back to normal. It was so overwhelming. Uh, and since then, I've had you know encounters as well. I mean, there's the energy output. You could feel it. You could feel it. It's there, talking to you, um, trying to show you. I've had very vivid dreams that have um, involved like shadows, um, being in front of me, feeling, the feeling of something's there, something's trying to communicate, something's trying to talk. So, yeah, that was basically the encounter. It was a very, very intense encounter. Um, Something that was, you could kind of tell that even if it was juvenile, its origins were very old, um, and it was not of this world. So it was there for a reason. It was there specifically just to communicate and try to make, establish a contact or like a bond. Um, I felt it a couple of times. I still have actually have the rock right here, um, and you hold it, you still feel the charge off of it. It's just, just a piece of limestone rock, but it's got an energy that it gives off, and kind of cool to the touch still. But in the days following, you feel like doors have opened, like you're able to communicate. Even though it's still fleeting, you can still feel it, and you're trying to. I've been working on it. I've been working with Lon. I've been working with Jennifer, trying to learn how to control that, how to control the vibrations, the energies, to try to communicate with it. But it was something that was literally life changing for me.
Well, it was life changing for me. I tell you, I was, of course, Jennifer and I were on Messenger with you at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and we were trying to communicate. I was getting a little frightened there because there were the times you were probably overwhelmed by what was going on. You just weren't answering back, and it got a little hairy there. It seemed, but you did. I mean, it's interesting. It's almost like I was actually. And for those who know, I do remote viewing, but a lot of that is intuitive and psychic as well. I don't really consider myself a psychic medium, but you do pick up things. Um, and I was standing there watching the whole thing with you. Now, first of all, the beings, these unseen ones who communicate with Jennifer and myself, are their names are Yakaya and Chelko. That's the names they gave us. And when Yakaya was told Jennifer that the name of this being he was going to meet you at the cemetery, his name was Uru, U-R-U. They explained it was a juvenile. And from what I'm getting, and I don't know if this is even true, but I've got a sense that many of these winged beings that are being seen at the airport and around the Chicago area are actually juveniles. They're younger beings. And Bias, we've had sightings of smaller beings as well. So I don't know if there's a correlation there or not. I don't know. But we're going to go deeper into this. I'd like to know, Tobias, what did you experience the night out there at the Kettle?
Oh, sure. So that was a pretty interesting night. We went out there as Emily and myself, our friend Jay Bachochin, who is a very active researcher in that area, and then a couple of members of the Singular Fortean Society. So we were doing this in-person investigation. Oh, Adam Benedict of the Pine Barrens Institute was also there. I can't forget my good buddy Adam. And so we had gone out. Originally, what we wanted to do was repeat this CE5 experiment that we had conducted, several weeks ago, and we had some pretty good results from that. And so we headed out there and we repeated that particular experiment. And we did have some pretty good results, but I think probably in terms of something that could potentially be related to this phenomenon, it was really on the way out that we noticed how active the kettle had suddenly become. It had been a while since, because we go out there fairly regularly, and it had been a while since we had as active of what we like to call an escort on our way out. And so Escort is sort of the term we use when it seems like something is escorting us, really. And so we certainly had that feeling on our way out of the kettle last Saturday, and it was pretty extreme. A lot of branch breaks, and just obviously, and this is hard to, I think, really convey to people who are listening or watching, but there really was this presence that you could feel. You really have to be there to understand, but there was this palpable sort of presence of just not being alone while this stuff is happening around us on our way out. And it's interesting to me specifically because I hadn't really made this connection yet, but we've experienced things out there that certainly could be related to this. We've really only been going out there since we began the Lake Michigan Mothman investigation and all that stuff. So, the Chicago Phantom, O'Hare Mothman, all that. And we've conducted a variety of investigations with, different experiments and things involved. And one of the things that we have done is just take our spirit box out there, because there's a variety of phenomena that people report, and some of it is very biological seeming, sort of standard Bigfoot, Dogman reports, things like that. But some of it is strange balls of light, missing time experiences, the sense of this presence and things like that, rock throwing, which, may be something throwing rocks at you, like some biological animal, maybe some kind of poltergeist effect. We really don't know. And so because of all of that phenomena that had been occurring out there as well, we decided to take our spirit boxes out. And during one session, I remember specifically, and I don't remember verbatim because I didn't memorize the actual conversation, but basically the gist of this spirit box session was that whatever was accompanying us that particular evening was watching us, and its purpose was to watch us. And I do remember specifically one of the words that came through very clearly was, so when I asked sort of, what are you doing? Like, what is the purpose of this? It was literally to probe us. And so I'm reminded of an experience that I had in January of 2019. I think this would have been just before the Woodstock sightings began. I was out walking our dog. This is when we still lived in Madison. We've since moved, but I was out walking our dog, and we lived in a fairly dark neighborhood. Like, it would get pretty dark there at night, which is weird because we were in the middle of the city at that time. But anyway, I was out walking the dog, and we lived on a hill, and so I was about halfway up this hill. And I remember looking at the top of the hill, and at the top of the hill, there is this community center, and across the street from that, there's a park. And next to the park, I saw these two figures, and they appeared to be tall, cloaked, hooded figures. I couldn't make out any real detail, in terms of facial detail or anything like that, but they looked like they were just sort of these solid black, stooped, cloaked figures. And I had the distinct impression in that moment when I'm seeing them standing up on this hill that these things were watching me, that they were observing me for whatever reason, maybe related to the investigation that we were doing at that time. And it wasn't until I saw that photograph that you shared, that David took, that it really started to click, because I'd always suspected it could have been related to the Mothman stuff. Like, that's sort of the traditional, sort of high strangeness that you would expect investigating that sort of phenomenon. But it really wasn't until some more of these pieces started to fall into place that it really clicked for me, because seeing that photograph, the stature, the posture of the thing in that photograph actually matched the posture of the things that I had seen up on that hill. And then I started thinking, well, how many witnesses have we had come to us and say, I thought at first what I was seeing was a man wearing a cape, or I thought I was seeing a man wearing a cloak or a hood or something, until it spreads its wings. And then all of a sudden they go, well, wow, that wasn't a cloak. That wasn't a cape. That was this thing's wings. And so all of these pieces start falling in place for me. And I can't help but wonder, well, hell, I mean, is that what I saw that night? Because that's certainly, when you look at all of the other pieces we put together since then, it certainly seems possible. Honestly, seems pretty likely at this point in terms of the available explanation. So as far as I know, I've had contact with these things, or at least I've been observed by them for a minimum of 2.5 years, possibly longer. So yeah, it's very interesting to me to see this stuff sort of falling into place. Even the name of that entity that Manuel had contact with, Uru, and you both did this, like you both spelled it, you are you, which in and of itself is an actual phrase in the English language, and it reminds me of an experience I had years ago, where I was visited by some entity. And at the time, it took the form of sort of a traditional gray alien, but it imparted this weird message to me, and I've never been able to make sense of it. But the message was, we are you. And I don't know if that's related at all, but just hearing you guys say that right now, like, that's the first thing that I thought of. And so there's all of these weird synchronicities, all of these things just sort of lining up now that have been happening for years and years at this point. And it's astounding, frankly.
Yeah, I have been thinking for the past week or more, a little more, since Manuel had his encounter, and then some of the things that we've gone back and looked at it. I have a distinct feeling that these beings have been watching us in particular for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think that, and when it asked for you guys to be put on this unseen one's team, you guys were, it was told to us by name. I mean, your names were used. So I have a distinct feeling that we have been watched ever since all this began. At least 2017 when all this began. So, it's bizarre. It really is bizarre to me. I don't know. My God, I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is the first time hearing you say this. And I didn't really question Manuel on his encounter either. I wanted to wait for you both to present what had happened to you as a result of this. And I'm glad I did, because that's impactful. Look, folks, that you're listening to us, the three of us are not conspiracy theorists. Let's get that right off the table now, because that is not us. I mean, that we're probably as far from being conspiracy theorists as anybody out there. I know for myself, and I know for Tobias especially, and for Manuel, we don't report anything unless we see the field or experience it, and that's one thing I think we've learned in spades as far as this whole investigation with these winged beings, because these witnesses have become very, they're very forthright in what they tell you, and you've talked to many of them, and it's kind of interesting how they don't embellish on their sightings. They don't do this, they don't do that. Not like most cryptid sightings or even hauntings and such. People have a tendency to embellish on these things, and this just hasn't been the case. Now, is this leading up to what we're actually going through now? I don't know. I mean, it may very well be, but God, I don't know. I'm kind of dumbfounded now. This whole thing has been, like I said, it's been a whirlwind. Now, I will say this: before Manuel had his encounter, the chief I guess he's the leader of this group, this Unseen Ones group. His name's Ukiah. He has been communicating with Jinn for a long time now. And he basically sent us a manifesto, statements that he told to her, and I actually wrote it down. So, let me read this out because I have read to you guys as well. I mean, this is the first time you guys are hearing it. So let's see what, how, if there's any comparison here to what you guys experienced. Now, he states that I'm saying he or it states, I don't know if it's a he or her or whatever it is. But the first statement is many of the winged beings have red eyes and can see infrared light. The eye color manifests under darker conditions for the most part. During daylight, the eyes will usually appear as dark or black. When the ultra-terrestrials, and he refers to themselves as UTs, wear black or purple robes, it is not a mechanism to scare humans. Most humans do not see them in the dark or in low light. There are many winged humanoids on our dimensional level at any given time. The UTs have always been at the O'Hare location even before the airport was built. The UTs designate those humans able to see or detect them. Now, this is something we've been wondering about with all the sightings. Are these people being picked to see them? It seems that way because a lot of times we've gotten sightings where there have been other people around and there's very few people that are seeing it. The UTs frequent ley lines because of magnetic resonance, comparable to how birds and fish use for travel. There are definite intracryptic. Let me say that again. There are definite intracryptid connections, since many unknown species are also UTs. And finally, UTs are not harbingers of disaster. But I will tell you this. Now, I kind of hesitate to even mention this, but I am going to mention because I stated it to Jennifer when we were going through this, that when that statement was made, I had a vision of an airline crash. I'm going to tell you right now. That's what I had. I had a vision. It was quick. I don't know where it was at. I don't know if it was at O'Hare. I don't know where it was at, but I saw that. That's the only thing I saw. But that was at the end of the last statement they made. So I don't know. Do you guys want to comment on any of that?
Well, there was a major air crash at O'Hare.
Right.
It's been about, oh my God, I want to say like 30 years ago.
Wow.
The airplane, the engine fell off upon takeoff, and it crashed into the field that's across the street. If you're on Grand Avenue, it's right across the street. They actually have never done anything with that field since. There used to be a banner there to kind of memorialize, and now there's a down the street at the park. There's a huge memorial, or there's a long, large spire that's the memorial for that crash. I'm trying to look up the crash real quick, but I mean, there can be that. I've never heard of anything else ever happening at O'Hare other than a couple of years ago, a plane caught fire as it landed, and that's because I believe they said it was in the news. They said it was because almost the same situation as with the Concorde. There was debris on the runway, and it kicked up and punctured the wing, and that was the cause of it. But the plane itself was landing when it happened, so there was a lot of social media stuff. It was American Airlines Flight 191 that had 258 people die. No survivors. May 25th of 1979.
Yeah, that's been a while.
Yes.
It's been over 40 years ago. And I actually remember seeing the video of what they had of it, because that thing, when it took off, it kind of just took a nosedive and went behind one of the buildings there at the airport and crashed.
the number one engine and the pylon separated during the rotation, and that dragged out the. I guess when it fell, it took the hydraulic system along with it, and caused the plane to bank and then just crash straight into the field. Um, I'm too young to probably remember. I was only 4, maybe 5 years old when it happened. But other than that, there's O'Hare for the relative part. It's been quiet, even though it's probably one of the top maybe 3 most busiest airports in the entire world. It's been
its safety
quiet.
record is remarkable. Actually, it really is. I mean, compared to most other airports.
Yes.
And for the amount of traffic that comes in and out of there, as well as Midway. Midway's been very safe as well. So, you're right. I mean, now I don't, like I said, I'm going to say again, that vision I had, I don't know if it was there or what airport it was, but that I got a brief glimpse of something that looked like there was an aircraft crash, one of these airliners crashed. So, that's all I'm going to say, but I figured I should say it because that's what came to me. And I did make note of it. So, Tobias, what's your thoughts on this so-called manifesto?
Well, one of the things that's interesting to me that stuck out right away is the differentiation in eye color between different types of or different times of day and different volumes of light present. So you've got these red eyes at night, and then in the daytime. You've got these darker black eyes, and actually, I'm making an assumption there. Like I'm assuming that has to do with the amount of light present at those particular times. Now, if it does, well, that makes this other case very, very interesting and sort of fit into place in terms of the larger investigation. So the 2017 Mukwonago, Wisconsin sighting. Now, that witness said that he had his sighting at night, but the thing that he saw had these large black eyes. However, when he was looking at it, it was standing right in front of his van, which was parked at that time, and he had turned his headlights on. And so my thought was, well, okay, if there is some element, to these eyes that causes them to change depending on how much light is present, well, maybe the headlights of this van would have triggered whatever reflex or response that is, and so this thing had black eyes during his sighting, and mostly it doesn't, because most people aren't shining car headlights directly into the thing's eyes when they see them. So that made a lot of sense to me. Obviously, I have argued vehemently against the harbinger of doom angle for some time, because it's never made any sense.
Yeah.
And so I mean, obviously, I'm going to agree with that. And in terms of other stuff that's really verifiable, I mean, I don't know what to make of your vision. Hopefully it doesn't come true. Nobody wants to see that kind of thing happen.
Yeah, like I said, I was hesitant even to mention it, but I figured for the record, I'd state it. But yeah, I don't know why they stated this harbinger of disaster or whatever, because maybe they know that we've been concerned about it and been hearing a lot about it. And you and I have been denying it. Every time we go on a radio show, we kind of shoot that down, because we're always asked that question. Well, is this similar to what happened at Point Pleasant? Well, you and I both don't believe the Point Pleasant situation was a harbinger of disaster. It seemed to me like it was the biggest, people were trying to find answers why 46 people in a little town die like that all of a sudden.
I think John Keel needed an ending for his book, frankly.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
Think that's because nobody in Point Pleasant, in 1967, was blaming Mothman for that bridge collapse. Everybody knew why it happened. It was a faulty eye pin, and there were no bones about it. And certainly the people grieving for their lost loved ones and neighbors were not connecting it to any monster sightings at that time. It wasn't until the 70s when Keel wrote his book and he needed a narrative ending that people would enjoy when he wrote it, then anybody was talking about it. So, yeah, of course, it never made sense.
Well, I mean, kind of think about it. Back in the '60s when this happened, did they do inspections like they do nowadays with bridges? Um, I mean, this was a result of metal fatigue, basically. Um, it's very logical. I've never believed in the harbinger of doom theory, even though there are reports that have come from different places, but that could also be strange coincidences. And what you were talking about, Tobias, when you're talking about the membrane, I mean, the only thing I can kind of relate that to is if you've ever watched sharks when they're attacking something. Um, Great white sharks have white eyes, and when they roll back a membrane right before the attack to protect their eye, they have jet black eyes. Uh, at that point, it's just all it is a protective membrane that they roll back over their eyes to protect them. Maybe this is what this gentleman saw. I mean, I certainly would not be very happy to have somebody shining their headlights in my face. I would want to protect my eyes, but it also can go back to the same thing. How many times have we seen pictures of cats? Cats have supposedly glowing yellow eyes, glowing green eyes. It's just the eyes can reflect light; they amplify light. Um, how many of us have ever taken pictures and the person looks like a possessed demon because we're catching the reflection of their blood vessel from behind their eyes? Maybe this is what they're seeing. These eyes are maybe designed to amplify the light. They gather it, much like they do with owls. There's certain owls out there that can see in certain ranges of the infrared spectrum. Um, Maybe that's what they do. They amplify the light, 1,000-fold. There are animals out there who can see in wavelengths we can't even see. I believe it's mantis shrimp can see in 12 different wavelengths. We can see in 4. Uh, they're seeing things that we've never seen. They can see polarized light. Um, we can't. To us, it's invisible. Infrared's invisible to us. So maybe biological reasons why these creatures have different types of eyes. It's not that they have glowing eyes, but even though if they're coming from another world or an alien species, we may not know it. But as far as what we know here about biology on Earth, maybe it could be any number of these reasons why their eyes are always different.
The statement also in that manifesto where it states that the UTs have always been at O'Hare location even before the airport was built. Now, Manuel told me something I didn't even know, and I know the order. I know the designation, the FAA designation for O'Hare is ORD. I never knew why. Well, he told me why. Manuel, tell us why that is.
Well, before O'Hare was built, it was an orchard. It was, believe it, an apple orchard. So this is what that whole area, the entire, um, width of O'Hare was an apple orchard back in the day. So to kind of honor it, they named it, they gave it the designation ORD or orchard. Um, and like you're talking about with ley lines, these cemeteries, Rest Haven's wasn't the only cemetery on the grounds of O'Hare. There was another one that was dug up and moved before they started the expansion of O'Hare. The only reason they're not moving to Rest Haven is because some of those gravestones are over 100 years old. It's basically a historical monument. Um, but yeah, there are, and we were just discussing this in the group. There are maps that show there are ley lines that run right through O'Hare and right through Rest Haven.
Yeah, I saw those maps, and we had an inkling that maybe there was a ley line there. In fact, Jennifer told me she thought there were at least 3 of them intersecting there, but she wasn't really sure. But when the map came up, yeah, it showed it going right through the cemetery, right through that area. And of course, people that know the ley lines, these things extend for hundreds of miles, if not thousands of miles. So this is going beyond the airport. I think some of the designation of these ley lines was right there at the right downtown there at the shoreline of Lake Michigan, if I'm correct.
Hmm. I believe, if I remember right, some of the ley lines that are in Chicago correspond with the streets, the major streets, such as Michigan Avenue, and some of the other major streets of Chicago, because they're all laid out in a specific pattern. Um, that really just until you do some research into kind of the back story of it, a lot of it is because they're saying people are saying they're following ley lines. This is why a lot of these streets are always so parallel to one another in the city, and they just follow a totally different path. Um, a lot of people say in Grant Park, the largest park in the city, is bordered by two ley lines. It sits in the middle of two ley lines.
Well, I got to ask you this. I'm going to ask Tobias, what do you think we're in for? Do you think this is going to evolve, progress, or what? What's your thoughts?
Well, I guess based on what historical information we have concerning these sightings, I think that we're probably in for a lot more of the same in terms of what people are seeing, what people are reporting. I mean, you're right when you mentioned before. There were some sightings going back into 2011. Prior to when we began the 2017 investigation, and since then we have gathered, I don't know how many, probably at least a couple of dozen of historical sightings. The oldest one I have goes back to 1957, which is even before the Point Pleasant stuff. And so looking at those sighting reports, not much has changed. People are still reporting the same thing, and they're reporting these experiences sort of in the same way that they always have. And most of the reason that they're reporting them now instead of back then is because they didn't have anywhere to go with them back then. They weren't going to call the police. It wasn't something that most people were going to go to Project Blue Book with or something. There just really wasn't any reporting outlet. And so I guess just to speculate on where things might go with our particular involvement, if there is some direct interaction with whatever these beings are, well, who's to say? Regardless, the likeliest outcome probably is for it to remain personal experiences, whether those are our experiences or the experiences of the witnesses with whom we speak. There's no reason for me to believe that this is going to step outside of the realm of experiential phenomena at this point. So I guess where I'm kind of going with that is anybody who's waiting for some giant bombshell that proves it all to be true. I wouldn't wait around for that. I really wouldn't, because I don't know that that's the point. It's never really seemed to be the point. It seems more that if there is some intention behind these sightings, behind these interactions, it's more to elicit something from us or to observe us than it is to prove something in a way that mainstream science is going to take seriously. I don't know that is an actual priority for whatever we're dealing with here. So, beyond that, I don't know. Anything could happen.
Yeah, it's an enigma, of course, but I mean, I guess the biggest question we have as far as these sightings is, why is it happening? And that we haven't really gotten anything from that yet, and I don't expect to get anything for a while. If they're going to continue to communicate with us, or in the way they have been, I think it may take a while. But the biggest thing that worries me now is, here we are presenting this information. We're putting it out there, and never going to have other people coming up and saying, "Oh yeah, I had the same experience. I had this. I had that." It's going to be, it's going to try to convolute the whole thing, and I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But of course, you're going to get copycats for this type of thing. Always happens. Welcome to the paranormal. And Manuel was noting also earlier about all the people that he saw out there. Can you talk about that, Manuel?
Well, I mean, when I went out there to after their first sightings, um, I was actually keeping in touch with the team because I was recording everything. I was out there with my son, and there must have been at least 8 other groups out there
Hmm.
uh, investigating. Um, and some of them were just one group was out there in a jeep with a bunch of antennas hanging out, running around the airport and around the perimeter. Because I remember very clearly they got in trouble because right where the sightings happened, that little curve in the road. If you go all the way to the end of the curve, you're going to run into a restricted area, and on the other side is where the USPS facility and a couple of other facilities are go. There's also tunnels that lead under the airport in that area. So you have on both sides of the road um, are guard points, and they're guarded 24/7. Um, and I remember seeing them getting trouble because they crossed over there, and I guess
Mm.
they had to be escorted around. You had to kind of go around, up and around, so they can turn you around so you can go back out the other side. But you're done. When they do that, they have an escort for you that does it.
Mhm.
Um, these guys are not. They take security very seriously at this airport. Um, and then about a week later, somebody got kicked out of the airport. There's a group of investigators because they were flying drones over the fence line. Um, Here's a tidbit for an advice for you guys. I have nothing with the more the merrier, the better way to find out truth. But please be careful. O'Hare is not a playground. It is, like I said, one of the top 3 most busiest airports in the world, and flying over the fence line with a drone is a big no-no. Um, that's about ranked up there with trying to climb the fence, which we've had. We've had how many reports have we had of people getting arrested or thrown out of the airport because they climbed the fence? Um, that's how you end up in a detention cell or were shot. Um, and especially in a post 9/11 world.
Mhm.
Um, please be careful when you're out there. But there have been, and this is what worries me about this. Like you said, you can have people going out there. Rest Haven is a monument. A lot of these places, a lot of these stones out there are over 100 years old. Um, please be respectful if you're out there. Um, we follow protocols. As Tobias, I know for a fact Tobias does. I know that Lon does. I know everybody on the team does. Senior reporting site, all of us have standards. We have procedures that we have to follow to maintain the sterility of an environment that we go into. Um, don't be the ass that gives the rest of us a bad name uh, by going out there and messing something up. Some of these stones are very fragile. Uh, and this is what I worry about. Like you said, other people were out there that day. They were out there, actively investigating. Great. Hey, the more the merrier. Maybe somebody will find the truth, and every little bit helps. But when you're doing it the wrong way, um, you're going to end up getting yourself in trouble. Where this sighting happened, the control tower is less than 100 yards away.
Mhm.
It's They're not going to take lightly to you coming up to the fence when there's a plane right there that's being unloaded, or that control tower not too far away. You will have responses, and they're immediate. We were out there, and within 30 seconds, we were seeing security vehicles out there already
Mhm.
patrolling the area. They had already set up mobile remote viewing stations out there, uh, little like little viewing or platforms for generators and cameras to keep an eye on just the influx of people. Um, some of these places, they don't want you on their property, and Um, I have, like I've told you guys before, I have credentials. I am, I work for a trucking company, so I've been out there to the airport, to, you know, hand paperwork to my drivers or to, pick up loads. I've been out there myself to do them. I have credentials to be out there. Um, I can show them. They can call my employer and verify who I am.
Hmm.
Um, if you don't have the credentials, do not go up to one of these facilities and try to access it. Do not try to cross the fence. Do not go up to the fence. Um, there's a proper way to do an investigation. Um, if you have questions, ask one of us. I'm sure Lon, I'm sure Tobias, any one of us is more than willing to share the knowledge to the next new generations.
Yeah, we got a question. Manuel, can you tell the chat what you saw when you say other people investigating?
They were out there, taking camera, pictures. They were out there taking, you know, photographs, videotaping. They were out there doing. Somebody was out there. Looked like they were doing a, you know, little interview or something with themselves. They had people out there with a camera. This group that was in the Jeep, I really wanted to know because these were antennas that were designed to like either they're one of those people that like to listen into the airport to the
Yeah.
chatter between the pilots. I mean, why have the cameras? You have apps I can download um, that let me do that. Um,
But
but
you
they,
can take a regular scanner out there and pick all that up. You have
yes,
the right
exactly.
frequency. Yeah,
It's a public radio
absolutely.
station. You can pick it up online. You can get the information. But these were like very high gain antennas. They had laptops in the back. I, they were running. They'd run a course where they would go to the end where the main road is, turn around, come back, and then go all the way back over. And I guess in that one trip, someone miscalculated where they were and got themselves in trouble with security. But I saw them pass at least 6 or 7 times. I had people out there that were going right up to the fence while a plane is being unloaded, uh, taking pictures. They were doing like little interviews. They were standing across the street at the United Center or the United facility,
Hmm.
taking pictures. Um, and it's good to see other investigators out there, other investigators, doing this. But it's when you get the select few, like the ones a week afterwards who went and got themselves in trouble, that you have that causes problems. That causes crackdowns. Um, right now, security is not our friend when it comes to these airport sightings.
Hmm.
Uh, they have very very quick response times, and they're usually very aggressive when they come to you. Um, be respectful.
That
You
has
know.
evolved too as time
Oh
has gone
yes,
by.
yes, very much. The one gentleman who had the sighting that got out of the airport or out of his car to try to take a picture, they were on top of him within seconds, and they were being very
Yeah.
forceful. Get in your car and get the hell out of here.
Well,
Uh,
let's talk about July 22nd. That seems to be the sighting where all this is kind of blown up in our, where we're getting multiple witnesses from different locations. I think we had United employees, we had FedEx employees. Uh, of course, we had at least 7 vehicles from TSA that emerged on this beam. Um, they had it all lit up. We had, like you said, we had the cargo people who had called into the supervisor, had called into TSA and got them out there immediately. Of course, like you said, it's very close to the tower. The tower's right there. When we had the air traffic controller had the sighting, it was right there as well. So we've had a lot of sightings in this area. So Tobias, I mean, if you want to kind of break down what happened on the 22nd, if you want to, and give us an idea. I know you just posted something recently of an update. What's your thoughts on all this sighting?
Oh, sure. Well, my understanding of what transpired on the 22nd, and I think Manuel probably is more knowledgeable than anybody in terms of really understanding what people have been reporting. But my understanding of it was that there was a sighting of a winged humanoid outside of the fence there that elicited a security response. It was seen by multiple employees of the O'Hare International Airport, and people keep reporting it. Now, the thing that I think you were referencing is, I've had a good working relationship with Sam Moranto, the state director of the Mutual UFO Network down in Illinois. And, so when that happened, one of the sighting reports actually was picked up by MUFON. Well, it was submitted to MUFON, and so it came through their case management system, and Manuel saw it and posted it, and so I had included it in one of our articles as well. And so of course I reached out to Sam and I said, hey, what can you tell me about this investigation? Like what's going on with this? And so he's always been very, forthright with me in terms of what they are trying to do. And he told me that they had an investigator who had reached out to this particular witness, and they had exchanged emails, and then they never heard back from him. I think the final email was in regards to this particular witness's phone number, which Sam said that they had tried, and it wasn't an actual phone number, or it was the wrong phone number. They couldn't find any record of this person's name as submitted in a report, anything like that. And well, what was interesting to me then is that this witness actually contacted somebody on our team and was interviewed over the phone, which was something that MUFON was not able to do.
And how many times has that happened?
Well, that was the interesting thing. That's at least the second time.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
And so
it goes back as far as Billy Bance back in, with the thing near Midway out there in Cicero. He, same thing with him. And, he had issues with MUFON, and a lot of these other witnesses did as well. I just don't understand why MUFON is so cut and dry on this, where they've got to have phone numbers, they got to have this. There are other ways of interviewing people, and I don't know who the field investigators are for MUFON Illinois that go to these places and are supposed to be talking to these people, but they're not getting a good response from them, and the witnesses are getting upset, and they come to us. And that has happened many times.
That's something that I had considered. I know the name of the investigator. I'm not going to call him out or anything.
Sure,
but
I get it.
But whatever he's doing, because I want to say it was the same guy at least twice.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever he's doing, it doesn't seem to be working. And I remember from my time in MUFON as a field investigator, it's not like there's any kind of auditing process that ever happens. Like nobody's looking over your shoulder, watching you conduct investigations. So at a certain point, I have to wonder if there isn't just, one or two investigators down there who don't have a very good investigatory bedside manner. They're not great with people. They treat interviews like interrogations or something. And it's just off-putting because it certainly seems to be turning witnesses off, which, more the better for us, because then they find us and we can interview them directly that way. But it's too bad, because I think that if MUFON were able to interview some of these witnesses, then they would be able to lend some credibility, to the reports, just having them interviewed by multiple organizations, other than the organizations we currently have, working together, which is us.
Well, if I remember right, there was the incident with the one rideshare driver. I believe that was Rosemont, and he was waiting for something, and they were interviewed by MUFON, and the guy was like, "You have to give your name, you have to give your information, we're going to publish it." And he had a really bad he left a really bad impression, and he even contacted us about it. Trust me, I'd love for them to be able to corroborate the evidence. I have nothing against MUFON. I mean, what happened with internally. That's their problem. But I have nothing against them. I've followed MUFON since I was a child, and um, it's I would love to have them corroborate the evidence. It just helps lend credibility to what we're doing. But you can't approach these people like some crime series on TV. These people are not criminals. They're witnesses to something that's going on.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I've always been put off by this whole thing with them and entity sightings. It just seems that they are so gun shy when it comes to that. Either that, or they just don't want to be bothered with it. Now, of course, they have people within the organization that are involved with alien abduction. So I think Kathleen Martin's one of them. They've had other people that have been involved with this, but. And I know a few of them, and I'm friends with a few of them, but they're almost stumped too, to be honest with you. I mean, you ask them, why do they not take entity sightings seriously? I mean, it's part of ufology. Is MUFON just interested in the nuts and bolts of a craft, or is it interested in everything that's part of ufology or a part of the actual report itself? And it just seems that they just are not interested in this type of thing.
It definitely does. And, that was sort of my experience when I was a field investigator with the Wisconsin branch of MUFON as well. Every once in a while, I would get handed a report by somebody who, would have claimed to interact with some entity or something. And, it really wasn't anything that anybody in the organization seemed to take particularly seriously, which was too bad, because some of these cases were actually very, very compelling. One point I do want to make very clear to everybody is that in terms of verifying witnesses' identities and the details of their stories, that is something that I personally, and I think everybody else, does take very seriously. So that is something that happens behind the scenes. The difference, I think, is that MUFON wants to be able to publish that material, and witnesses don't always want that publicly available. A lot of people, have careers and families and things, and they don't really want to be embroiled in some paranormal mystery. And so they are fine telling me their name and their age and where they live and where they work and everything else. And I can verify all of that info to at least know that they are who they say they are, and use that to try to verify the details of their sighting that are available to be verified. But if somebody says, hey, I have a career and a family and a life, and I don't want to be known as the crazy dude who saw Mothman, I'm not going to publish their name. If they're willing to stand by their story, I applaud that, because I've done that myself. I am a real person with a real life. I have a wife and a family, and I'm still willing to come on here and say, hey, I've seen things I can't explain. And a lot of people will look at that and say, hey, that's nuts. But here I am anyway. And so any witness who wants to do that, I think that's fantastic. But that is not up for us to say. That is an individual decision, and that's up to the witness. And I won't tell anybody their name. I won't tell my best friends their name if the witness asks me not to. And it's just as simple as that.
Well, unfortunately, we ran into that problem early on in these investigations back in 2017 when we had certain folks who were upset with us not, putting personal information out on witnesses. And, of course, we were criticized. Well, maybe I was criticized more than anybody, but, I'm not going to do that. And I know you guys aren't going to do that. That's just our policy, which ought to be the policy for everybody. But you're right. Yeah, MUFON does want to be able to put it out there, and I just don't agree with that. I would have never found David Eckhart if it wasn't for MUFON turning him down for not wanting to investigate entities.
Well, like I stated earlier, like I said earlier, we have procedures. The team has procedures that we follow, to keep everything sterile. Look at these. Look at what's going on now with these airport sightings. These people are being threatened with, we're going to fire you.
Oh, I know.
They're going to be, dealt with in a severe manner. These jobs pay very well, and have, these people have probably been there for years. You think they want to have their name put out there, so that the next thing that's going to happen, they're being dragged into a disciplinary meeting and terminated, um, just because they went to talk to somebody about it. These
Hmm.
people are scared. They are very scared. They told us more than once. I don't want my name put out there. I'm not going to give you any information other than just what we're giving you. You do not have permission to use my information for that
Right.
matter, because they don't want to. These are people's livelihoods. I'm not going to threaten that, just to get my name out there for an investigation. And I'm sure neither one of you two either would be doing
No.
that.
Well, and I've said this before. I've got a supervisor who works for one of the carriers who is coming forth with me and telling me some of the things that they're seeing and hearing from their own employees, as well as what they're hearing, the hubbub throughout the terminal. And yeah, the powers that be to be are at O'Hare are really cracking down, and they are threatening with termination. So, and some of the carriers are doing that as well. So, we have had some inside information from folks telling us this very scenario, and so I don't know. But I got to be honest with you. I really commend these people for coming forth. I mean, it takes a lot of guts to do that, for one thing, and the fact that it's July 22nd sighting, and all these people that are coming forth, and they all knew who was there. Now, not by name, but they know people are saying this. So I hope nothing happens to them. I hope this doesn't affect us as being able to get witnesses to come forth. But okay, we got a question here from Nancy Malcolm. How does Uru and others contact you to initiate or schedule a group remote meeting? Well, I'm not saying this is going to happen all the time, because this was a particular instance. Uh, Jennifer and I happened to be watching as Tobias, as Emmanuel was out there, and she was particularly getting instruction. And look, I tell you, the way this happens is pretty. Well, I don't know how different it is, but it's almost like, you people talk about ESP or some type of psychic connection, and Jen is psychic. She's very psychic. She's got a lot of gifts. But originally, and for the most part, when we do ask questions of them, we just get responses to yes and no. But on occasion, we have had things actually said. You hear people talk about your mind's eye, or you being able to hear telepathically. It's like that. And by me being with her and listening to her and watching her on some occasions, it's pretty interesting. I mean, it is very interesting. I think she's being very forthright with it, even with some of the things I have gotten. But anyway, in the case of Manuel, because he was out there, we knew he was out there. We tried to initiate this contact, and Manuel was following the instructions that they were telling her, and it's led to the actual contact itself. Now, from what we have been told, from now on, there's no specific reason for anybody to try to make contact at the airport or at the cemetery. They can do it at any location where they are comfortable. Well, just look at Tobias. Tobias feels something may have happened with him as he's out at the Kettle Moran State Park, and who knows? That may very well have been a contact. And speaking of Kettle Moraine, that place has had activity for years now, and I'm talking about everything you can think of out there. It's just a strange area. I think it's a non-glacial area, is it not, Tobias?
No, it's a huge glacial formation.
Okay.
Basically, you had glaciers that came all the way down, from the North Pole or whatever, however long ago, and they tore up this whole area, and so we've got this enormous forest that runs almost the length of the state, in the eastern portion of the state. And it's full of kettles and moraines. So kettles are these like valleys, and moraines are these hills, and they're formed by like this glacial activity. And you're right, it's a weird area, and a lot of weird stuff has happened out there. A lot of weird stuff has been reported.
Well, I know Jane's done a lot of work out there, and of course Linda Godfrey has done a lot of work out there as well. So
she has.
So, folks, you got more questions, let us know. Yeah, you're right. I mean, and and the fact that you had a possible connection while you're out there really doesn't surprise me, actually. So.
Well, I was going to say, just real quick, speaking of, not having to be at O'Hare, I mean, that possible sighting I had of something observing me, that was in the middle of Madison, Wisconsin, which is the second largest city in Wisconsin, with like 300,000 people. And we live close to downtown. So, I mean, there's no reason why it couldn't happen anywhere.
Well, I think they're following us. I mean, I think they are keeping an eye on us for whatever reason. I think it's from what's going on in the very beginning, us getting involved. It's always been confusing to me, even a bit surprising. Why have these sightings kind of fallen in our laps? Who else is getting these sightings? They may be getting them, but they're not publishing them. But we're publishing 95% or more of these sightings. Well, if not all of them. Why is it just us getting these sightings? I have had people ask that, and, they say, well, are you making this up, or why are you guys getting the reports?
Well, we're not the only people getting them, because I get them referred to me. Usually what will happen is, say, well, for instance, like my friend Jesse Durdell over at the National Cryptid Society, you'll get a weird report like this, or Adam Benedict at the Pine Barrens Institute, they'll get a weird report of this winged humanoid, and they'll say, oh, hey, like that's Tobias's thing. Like he's looking into those. I'll send them his way. And so that's one way right there. Yeah, other organizations are getting these reports. It's not just us. And then, and I'm sure, Manuel can speak to this as well. But like the fact is that there is such a thing as search engine optimization. There is such a thing. Seriously, because when people have these experiences, what do? They don't call the police. They don't call the media. They Google it. They go onto the internet and they Google it. And when they do, they're going to find one of us. Now, if they're in the Chicago market, those Google search returns are going to favor Manuel because he is local to that market. That is a fact. If you know anything about marketing, that's just how it works. Yeah. And so, of course, if somebody is local to that area, they're going to find him through Google, or they're going to find me, or they're going to find you, through a podcast appearance, a documentary appearance. I've had multiple people who have reached out to me just from appearing, in the Small Town Monsters doc, Terror in the Skies. And so at a certain point, one, when it starts out and you're the only people covering it, that kind of gives you a head start, and that's going to help with your SEO, and that's going to lead more people to you, and then it just snowballs. But we're not the only people getting these. Like, there are reports going to other people, not as many for the reasons I just stated, but they are, and usually when they get them, they just send them our way, or at least that's been my experience.
Yeah, and you are right. But I wanted to put it out there so people who wonder why in the hell are you guys getting these reports and nobody else? Well, that is, there is a way as to why it's working like that, and SEO is a big part of that. You're correct.
I mean, also, just like Tobias does the same thing. We post on multiple groups that we belong to that are fellow researchers that are, or paranormal podcast that we keep up with, we post stuff. When the sightings were happening all over Little Village, I was out there posting, flyers and handing out cards to people, and I was getting a bunch of hits off of that. We use the tools that are around us to help us try to find these. We also go out and do our own research. How many times have we seen sightings that we've passed on to the group that we see on Reddit or on Twitter or on even on the chat of one of the podcasts that we're listening to, or even a podcast where we're on, somebody says, I saw something, and we just get hold of them and, go from there. We use the tools that we have. Also, one question I wanted to ask Tobias this. The Kettle Moraine, does it also have like a lot of like First Nation like activity, like were there like burial grounds or ceremonial sites there?
Boy, that's a good question, and I will tell
I'll be
you,
honest with you, I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know specifically about any mounds. There almost have to be, because they're all over the entire state. Unfortunately, a lot of them have been destroyed. They wouldn't have been destroyed if they exist in that area. But you can't go a dozen miles in Wisconsin without there being something like that, or at least at one time having been something like that. And so it wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff like that up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I and I have been looking into that more recently, and there is actually a tri-council of First Nations that are part of all that up there in that area, particularly the Ho-Chunk or Winnebago, and I kind of believe that they were the more dominating group in southern Wisconsin. So but no, I have not really heard a whole lot about the Kettle Moraine and having any indigenous group activity there. But who knows? I mean, they've been there a hell of a lot longer than we have. So who knows what was there?
That's exactly right.
So, folks, you got questions? We're going to be on here for another half hour. So, if you got a question, put it up in the chat, and we'll try to answer it for you. Was it one of the unseen? This is from Matthew. One of the unseens are Mothman that Manuel felt the energy of next to him. What do you think, Manuel?
Honestly, I believe it was. I know it was one of the unseens. It was not a Mothman. I honestly, like we've discussed before tonight, I feel these winged humanoids are the Mothman. They're calling them now. And just a side note that really starting to burn me, because people are associating this with Point Pleasant, but I would digress. It is. I believe these things are what we're seeing. It's the unseen. The unseen ones. We're not. They're kind of one and the same. They're the flip side of one of us, the same coin. So I feel that it was one of the unseen that I felt that night.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody told me that 2 months ago, I probably would have questioned that. But I'm not questioning it now. I think that is true, though. I think what we are getting is what are very closely associated, if not the beings that people are seeing out at the airport and other places. I mean, that's just my thoughts. But I think that may very well be the case. Are you afraid to be in contact with these entities? That's from Amy Crew. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's like anything else when you're involved with the paranormal and you're kind of going out of your realm and your safety net. Who's to say that you might run into something that's not really kosher? I mean, they have they have an agenda. I've always said, and I even in my book, that I believe these beings do have an agenda at some point. Is it a singularity thing where they want to make us like them and vice versa? I don't know. It may very well be like that. But I think with what we're getting now out of O'Hara, I think this is positive. They wouldn't even had to contact us at all, and they could have made it a lot more difficult. And but this is something we got to continue to see what happens. if it looks like it's getting malevolent or starting to become an issue, I'm sure we'll back off. I mean, we'll find other means. But I think we're being given an opportunity here to at least explore what this thing is and what these things are. And, I think we ought to go with it. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but,
Well, I'll tell you, in terms of being afraid of any of this, I'm not. When I was a little kid and I first started experiencing the visitations that I had, which have been ongoing throughout my life, and seeing strange things, experiencing the paranormal, I was terrified. I didn't want to go to bed at night. I tried to hide, so I didn't have to. I would try to hide under my blankets. None of it helped. And at a certain point, by the time I was in my late teens, really, I had figured out that if whatever this was wanted to hurt me, I'd be hurt. I would have been hurt by then. And so I think that human beings are amazingly adaptable, and we can get used to almost anything. And I've gotten used to this, So I get startled because that's an involuntary response, and there's just nothing you can do about it. But in terms of actually being afraid of this anymore, I'm just not. I don't think that there's anything to be afraid of. Like, once you make that hurdle over the fact that all of this seems to challenge everything we've been taught our entire lives about how the world and the universe works, once you kind of get past that, which I didn't really have much choice, I had to, then there really isn't anything to be afraid of, frankly.
Sir Brian Bowden says, with zero disrespect to you all and understanding you have a social reach, why give a manifesto to individuals who aren't in position to get anything done? Well, I mean, that's an interesting question, but I mean, why do you say we're not in a position to get anything done? We may very well be that connection that gets things done.
Maybe,
that's the way I look at it.
I mean, who's to say what the motivation is? If you look at the entire history of ufology and cryptozoology and the paranormal, it's not a history of presidents and politicians and these pillars of society experiencing this stuff. Sometimes it is. It's not usually publicized until after they're either out of power or dead. But that isn't the history of this phenomenon or these phenomena, rather. It's a history of relatively normal people, and that isn't to say that it's not exceptional people, because everybody is exceptional in their way. But nondescript people that you probably haven't heard of, experiencing these impossible events for whatever reason. Whatever motivation there is behind this, if there is one specifically, targeting certain individuals to experience this stuff, I don't think that it is anything that is supposed to make sense to us, because I don't know that they care if it makes sense to us.
Yeah, that may be. You're right. Yeah, you're right. Got another question. Is Jen your only point of contact to these beings? Can you get her on the program? Well, Jennifer is fairly new with the group. I mean, I think she feels like she needs to establish trust with the group first of all. Though there has been it has been trust. We communicate well, but no, she's not the only point of contact at this point. I mean, it's all of us right now. We are all having some type of contact. She's probably getting the most since she's been involved with this the most. She's had contact in the same vein as David Eckhart has to a large degree. I mean, some of the stuff that has come to her over time has been pretty profound and frankly quite scary. I mean, she's told me a lot of this, and quite for her to come forward just to me, I think took a lot of guts. But she is very gifted. And I think she will eventually come out here and step forth and help us as far as presenting herself to the public, but it's going to take some time. This is, she has been involved with some things with the paranormal in the past. She's not well known, and but she does have some gravitas as well in some production as far as the paranormal, as far in media and entertainment. But I can understand how she feels that she has actually put herself out there to us, and it's just like when we have a witness, we don't want to put the person in jeopardy or just put them out there and just face the brunt of a whole lot of questions. I mean, this is spoon fed baby steps. So that's the way I feel at this point. What do you guys think?
I agree. And going back to kind of like what we were talking about before, with that great question that was asked by the gentleman that had asked that Sir Brian Bowden, I honestly think it's, this is just step one. This isn't a sprint, this is a marathon. How do we not know that this is not just the beginning of the first domino falling? The end result we might not even be around for when the end result happens. This is just, we're just a cog in one huge wheel, of something that's going to take forever, to get done. Maybe it moves at a, tectonic pace. It's the long haul. As far as with Jen, I mean, she is a great asset to our team, and she, this is something that we want to ease into. The last thing you want to do is get yourself, go in with both feet first, and then, not be able to find the bottom, figuratively speaking. But it's something that I think it's going to take time. It's going to be built upon, just like with anything, with science, pseudoscience, science. It has to start off first. You start off with the theory, then you go from there. You build up. This is, I believe, just a baby step, that's going to be built upon, and it's going to get refined. And as we learn, more, we are going to build upon that knowledge, and then those that come behind us will build upon that knowledge, and hopefully help us, be able to understand maybe in the long term.
Right. Well, you got anything to add to that, Tobias?
No, I think Manuel summed that up pretty well. I mean, we can sit here and speculate about the priorities of ultra terrestrials, I mean, for the rest of the night, and we're not going to be any closer to actually understanding them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea that somehow they would value the same things that our society values, I mean, it's for lack of a better word, it's a little narrow-minded, I think, because as alien as these things likely are to our way of being and our way of understanding, I mean, they probably have a whole set of priorities that frankly we're in no position to understand at this point. I mean, it would take a real shift, I think, in our perspective for us to even begin to understand these things, whatever they are, frankly. And so trying to ascribe motivations and understand why they're doing things a certain way, well, I mean, it's a fool's errand, frankly. And sort of the best we can do is try to chronicle what's been happening, and understand it best we can, with the understanding that it's an uphill battle, and we're going to have to be fighting for every little bit of understanding that we get along the way. And so, like Manuel said, it's going to be slow. And who knows what the actual end game is. For us, it might be understanding. For any potential ultra terrestrials or other beings out there, who knows what their actual end game is. You can trust them if you like, I would understand not, frankly, because again, who knows what the actual motivation might be. And so there are so many layers to this, in terms of what to trust, who to trust, what any of it means. That again, we can only speculate at this point.
I saw an interesting two-word, I guess it was a question, but I had to chuckle at it. Foya O'Hara. Boy, are those two words that don't go together.
I keep submitting FOIA requests,
me too.
And they keep ignoring them. So I mean, we'll see.
Sending FOIA requests to the FAA is kind of like really pulling teeth out. I mean, because you can't go right to the airport. You got to go through FAA Great Lakes, I think it is.
Well, this last time I actually went to TSA, and I submitted a FOIA request with them directly. Now I've had some success with submitting FOIA requests to the FAA before, but I mean that really success in that instance was just getting a response. And the most recent one I had with the FAA was they said that this was for a UFO sighting out in New Mexico, and they said that they weren't allowed to, or that they wouldn't comment on anything that like the FBI was investigating or something. So I was like, well, I mean, tell me there was a UFO without actually telling me there was a UFO, I guess.
Yeah.
That's just weird. But yeah, I mean, I submitted a FOIA request to TSA directly about the July 22nd sightings. And I mean, I haven't heard anything back yet, but those things can take months. I mean, that FAA one I did, I don't know how many weeks it was, but it was long enough where I had well moved on and forgotten I had actually.
They can put it on the slow track pretty, they can put it on the slow track. You're not going to hear a thing. Hope you forget about it, I think. Now, there was a question here I thought was interesting. Nancy Malcolm asked, will David Eckhart participate in any future meeting with Uru? Well, I guess that's up to them because they didn't request David to be a part of this. Now, I'm not saying that isn't going to happen. I do know, and no disrespect to David, because David and I have worked together for a long time. They did not request anything with him. Plus, the faction that David has been encountering is a different faction, from what I understand. I mean, these aren't the same beings. They may be ultra-terrestrials, but they're of a different faction. They're a bit more aggressive by some of the things that have been shown to me by David. And, David actually has a film crew down there now and have been down there for a month or more working on trying to document what's been going on at his place, especially since the last year or so. But that evolves as well. I mean, that's never a set thing with him. They seem to change up on the entities that are coming in and out of there. But no, I don't see any connection with David on this. I mean, David's part of our group. He is part of the Fortean team. But at this point right now, they have not requested David to be a part of this. So take it for what it's worth. That's all I can tell you. Anybody got any more questions here? When Uru and other seen ones are in contact, are their auras visible? No.
No.
No. I mean, I know I don't know what you experienced out there. Manuel, but I had no sense, and I can usually see auras of entities.
It wasn't an aura to say something that could be visually seen. It was felt. It was just energy. So I cannot say that, I saw an aura. At best, you saw shadows. Uru was not going to make himself known. And even I was told that when going in, you're not going to possibly get pictures. It probably would never even shown if I had sat there with the camera in my hands or.
Well, that's what we were told. Yeah, that's what we were told. That was a no-no, at least for now. So that's the answer we got. I mean, right now we are just trying to establish a trust, and like with anything that it's going to take a while. They may show themselves to us in a larger extent, but I don't think now. I mean, they're more intent on having ambient light show a shadow as opposed to actually seeing something. So, Andrew Bull, any cave systems near the airport? Not that I know of. I mean, maybe
No.
something man-made in the airport itself.
Oh, there are. There are
Yeah, and I know that.
multiple
Yeah,
tunnels
most
all
do
over the
have that.
place.
Yeah, but as far as natural caves, well, first of all, I don't think they'd have built the airport on top of caverns or caves and stuff. They'd probably filled it in if anything was there. But I don't know. You don't know what the whole motivation is for that. It's kind of interesting when they build airports where they put them at. I mean, it does seem most airports do have issues, paranormal issues, or some type of unexplained issue. Of course, everybody knows about Denver and all the craziness that has gone on and been
Mm-hmm.
out there for years. But O'Hare has also had some strange things happen over the years as well. I mean, let alone UFOs and now flying beings. But
Yeah.
who knows?
And I don't know of any rock formations that each within the next like 100, 200 miles of Chicago that would support cave systems.
Yeah, well, it would have to be limestone, especially,
Mm-hmm.
or some type of soft rock that could be, weathered somehow. But I don't even know what the bedrock system or what the bedrock formations are in that area.
Most of it is like, I mean, I know a lot of it has to do with the glacial, because that's how the lakes were formed. They were,
Yeah.
the result of being ripped apart by glaciers. But the closest cave systems I know of are like in northern Wisconsin, um, and I know that there's some like in Kentucky, Tennessee, uh, those areas. But as far as cave systems in the area, I do not believe that there are any like in Chicago. There are tunnels everywhere. Uh, O'Hare, Chicago, the area alone in Chicago is just crisscrossed by tunnels on top of tunnels.
Mm-hmm.
That are designed for everything. There was the Loop of Chicago has an actual rail system underneath it that was in use right up to about the 50s. That was used for the shops that were in the area, kind of like a small scale tunnel or rail system that was used. And that was actually flooded out in the 80s due to an accident. And it's still, as far as I know, remains still flooded. But there are headways, entire headways underneath Chicago, downtown Chicago, that are complete with shops and restaurants. Um, I used to work for a company that, for me to get to the train station, I had to take the pedway, and there's shops on both sides. And this is all underground.
Mm-hmm.
O'Hare is littered um, with tunnels. You see them coming in and out of tunnels if you sit there long enough. Um, so that's how they get back and forth from the place. So, but as far as cave systems, none that I know of.
We have a question here from See How We Are Living. Are the airport authorities hiding their knowledge of these entities, CCTV, etc.? No. That's where we get back to the FOIA request. That you're not going to get anything. I mean, and of course they're going to have cameras out there.
Oh yeah.
But like everybody else, you're not going to see anything. They're not going to show you anything, and if they do know anything, they're not going to tell you about it. I mean, they wouldn't be acting the way they are now if there was any hint of a cooperation, and that just isn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know really what they're afraid of, but then again, maybe they do know something we don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and there are cameras out there. I know for a fact. I mean, just remember, O'Hare has like 7 different cargo hubs in and around the area.
Mm-hmm.
The one where all the sightings are happening is just one of maybe 7 that are scattered throughout the airport. Tobias took one sighting that was on the northern part of the airport at one of the cargo areas. That's actually the near the Chicago Airport Authority offices where that one sighting happened.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's multiple hub areas, and these things are moving billions of dollars of merchandise every day. So yeah, they're from the time you're on the campus or on airport grounds, you are on TV the whole time. If there's anything happening, it's got to be on TV on one of these cameras. But yeah, they're not gonna disclose this out. And
Oh,
even if
you can bet they're seeing something. I mean, maybe
yeah,
that's what's scaring them.
well, look at the sighting that happened over O'Hare with the UFO report,
Mhm.
and that turned into a joke. That
Mhm.
wasn't even, you know, you're telling me a craft the size of the terminal was hovering over the entire airport, seen by everybody. Um, and it zoomed up and punched a hole in the cloud, and it becomes a running joke. I remember just watching the report on TV, and they prefaced the whole thing with the X Files theme.
Well, that doesn't
course.
surprise me. That was the kind of thing to do back in the early 20s and 1990s. Get that theme from X Files and just throw it on everything.
Yep.
You know. Is there a shadow person connection? Nah, I don't think that. You know, shadow people they're non-terrestrials as well, but I don't think there's any connection. I haven't heard anybody talk about any shadows or anything like that out there. I mean, it could be indirectly, but I don't know. What do you think, Tobias?
Well, it's interesting that they mentioned that because I have received reports of shadow people in the same areas, like within the sighting areas of the larger investigation. Not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily O'Hare, but other places around Lake
Right.
Michigan where people have reported this stuff. I spoke to one lady down in Chicago who was followed by some weird shadow person, while she was out one night. There's another guy in Indiana who said that he had seen this morphing shadow person that seemed to like turn into an animal or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And so, much like UFO activity, reports of other humanoids, including hairy humanoids like Bigfoot, or mantis people or dogmen or whatever, you do get reports of stuff like that in the same sighting areas. Whether or not that's related to the winged humanoid sightings, I mean that's up to interpretation. But there's a geographic correlation certainly.
Um, Vincent is asking any dreams, Tobias, Manuel, Lon. I know he has. He's mentioned dreams to me. Um, have you guys had any dreams? I mean, I know Manuel, you believe you did after they had the encounter.
Oh yeah, multiple times.
Uh,
I've seen. I've had dreams. I've had the one where I told you guys about waking up, seeing, or in my dreams, seeing these shadows that were like they were vaguely humanoid, but they were shifting. They just had no form,
hmm.
and there were like three or four of them in front of me, and but something was keeping them from approaching me. I that's where I said, that's the time I felt that maybe Uru was around,
Hmm.
but um, you know, I've had some very vivid dreams and experiences since this has happened, and they've gotten a little more intense. But I know Vincent has also had some pretty intense dreams. We talked about them,
Yeah.
um, and I think that it's all part and parcel, maybe with the as you're expanding and awakening, and you're starting to explore, you're either sending off like a dinner bell to something to attract attention, and we were told you probably would attract attention, but it's also maybe seeing things that may have been there the whole time and we just weren't you know used to seeing them till now.
Well, guys, I am going to wrap this up. We're going to do a follow up, no doubt, on this. Tobias, is there another book in it for us from this? What do you think?
There seems to be an endless stream, if that's what people are interested in. Well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I remember mentioning this in my first book, the Lake Michigan Mothman. Again, like if you're approaching this stuff honestly, as much as people want to have these tidy narratives, with beginning, middle, and end. That's the story. That's the whole story. Here's the book. Let's just move on. That's not how this stuff works. It probably won't ever end, frankly. Much like Manuel said, when we're all gone off of this earth, people are probably still going to be seeing this stuff, reporting this stuff. And so it never ends. There's endless source material for anything you want to do with it.
Well, you're right. And with all this new stuff coming now, if somebody asked me a couple months ago, are you planning on doing a third book about O'Hara or about Chicago? And I said, nah, doubt it, very much doubt it. That's why I'm doing this humanoid book now. But boy, I'm telling you, I mean, the fast and furiousness of this, I may very well have to reconsider that. So maybe I have 2 books coming up soon, but who knows? We'll see. I don't know. But look, guys, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. I know we're going to get together on this again because this is ongoing, and if you don't mind, I'd really appreciate you guys considering coming back on very soon if need be and to talk about this.
No, anytime.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, well, thanks again, and I know you and I will be talking soon, so you take care. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Now, if you have an unexplained encounter or sighting, feel free to contact me through the Phantoms and Monsters blog site. I want to again thank Manuel and Tobias for joining me this evening, and thanks to each and all of you for watching and chatting. I know this is an extended show. Might have got a little slow, but I hope you enjoyed it. And if you made a super chat donation, it's truly appreciated. Your support is what makes this possible. So please like, subscribe, and share. Now, next week, our friend Butch Witkowski is going to join me, and we're going to be discussing the overall situation with the Pennsylvania upright canines and dogmen. So that should be interesting. We had James West on last week, got a lot of good response. And now Butch and I are going to go and do an overview and some of the things that we see that are being reported and may possibly be part of this phenomenon in the future. So until next week, just stay healthy. Have a safe and enjoyable weekend. Thanks.